I don't see it. I don't see it now. Sorry. I'll talk to you about biogas in developing countries, opportunities, myths, and problems. And myself, I work, as Elaine told, in Rotária do Brasil and AKUT. And all of us who are presenting have worked in different constellations over Latin America or as well Africa together. And we have seen a lot of those opportunities and the myths and the problems. And so when Stefan asked me what could be an interesting theme, I thought that might be really interesting to talk about our experiences, because although biogas presents a large opportunity, it as well has its problems. So I would like to talk about the opportunity first, which is wastewater contains organic load. Organic load you can transform by anaerobic treatment and biogas, instead of doing aerobic treatment, which consumes energy. So theoretically, you are producing energy, you eliminate the odor and emissions problem, and you get a better operational situation because you don't use so much energy to clean water. So it's very interesting. And besides that, you are not flaring energy into the, or venting energy into the space, causing climate problems. So we as consultants, we see perfectly the thing that the SDGs 7, affordable and clean energy, and 13, climate action, could be attended by the use of biogas. So the expectations you have on that are very high. And really, it's a total win-win or win-win-win situation, because you could use the biogas to enhance sludge drying, to reduce sludge volume, to save sanitary landfill disposal. You could use the biogas to bring down the CO2 footprint, to reduce the costs of sludge management, to reduce electricity costs. And we did some calculations here in Brazil. We are able, theoretically, to have plants about 100,000 above, 1,000 per equivalent, on a zero emission situation, because we can produce the biogas we need, on the other hand, to have the electricity to do the aeration in the activated sludge plant. So it's really very, very interesting. But there's a really large but. First, the size matters absolutely. And we had a lot of situations, and in my day-to-day business, we have a lot of people coming to us thinking that you could do for a small condominium biogas production, and then you can produce energy, and then you might be able to reduce your energy bill. That's absolutely not the case. And small wastewater treatment plants, or as well from industrial production, swine manure, whatever plants, they cannot produce enough biogas to produce an energy which pays for the bill you need to buy the generator. So really, very often the pre-project, they have high expectations, and these expectations start to disappear each day when you do financial calculations. And if you do these calculations, especially based on local prices, then they disappear far more quickly. And overlapped by that, Carolina will talk about that, very often the gas production is not that high as you thought about, because you might have some venting on places you didn't expect. We had to learn some lessons, and we learned those from a Fullscale RD project where we did everything we thought by the book. So we have an UASB with 100,000 person equivalent, and we used, let me see how I can get the pointer. We did a totally encapsulation of the biogas with tight gas openings, and we did a piping of all the biogas. We installed flare. We installed a biogas tank, which has an internal H2S elimination biologically with a double membrane reservoir, with a total automatization of the CHP, where we had all those numbers you need to operate perfectly by telemetry. We had a cooler for the biogas and an activated carbon post filter to reduce even more the H2S concentration. And then we had the CHP. Perfect setup, very well thought about everything. The challenge is how this operates sustainably. And to make the story short, today this total setup is not in operation. And it's very, very sad for us. There are a lot of challenges we didn't think sufficiently. And the main challenges are operation and maintenance in a public service is really a critical aspect, because you have to have inputs which can be very expensive, and you have to do bidding for those. You need the activated carbon, you need the oil exchange, and repairs as well. So a very important aspect is you have to think about all these things together and not just in the perfect setup. This one here is a plant for 100,000 PE with 180 liters per second, about 200 kilowatts motor. But we only had 37% of the expected methane quantity because we were not able to measure beforehand. So it's very important to be very conservative. If not, you have a motor which is not working, and not working means no money. No money means no payback. No payback means it's not economically viable. So, and we underestimated the escape of biogas from the settling compartment. We were not able to correct because we didn't enter in everything in the reactor. So existing UASBs, transform them in gas-tight solutions is very, very challenging. And we had another experience which we underestimated. This motor came from Germany and was working perfectly, but by lightning, we had this pump here, which is a small pump, and you have in every household in Germany, and it takes you 1 day to change it in Germany. We had 4 weeks to be able to supply this pump. And this, for these 4 weeks, as a private area. If you do it in a public area, it's worse, because the public in Latin America has really, really difficult administration processes which hinder the purchasing capacity. You cannot underestimate that, because it's really a very critical point. So it's important to talk about the barriers we found, and we worked about that in a project, Pro Biogas, here in Brazil by GIZ. Sorry, where we worked about all these barriers. the national equipment manufacturers, you should always give a preference to those, even though the quality might not be that good. But the problem of importing is very, very high. You have to be very critical about that. It depends on the country, I know. And the technical knowledge, the commercial knowledge, and the legal information is really critical point. The thing we did in Mexico with the GIZ project, Bentley will talk about, is really set up horizontal exchange projects. And you need commercial scale reference projects. And these have to work on a long-term basis. So the financing, the back financing options of these projects are very important. And to be able to get public policies going, you need a strong biogas association. Some of the proposals we did 5 years ago or 7 years ago in this GIZ project here in Brazil, I mentioned, only now have been put into action, because until now, public policies in certain kinds were not able to overcome. So all these barriers are critical to successful biogas project. And very often in a project you have, in the time frame you have in a GIZ project, that might be very short. And another point which I would like to mention is the currency exchange situation. If you have a currency in your country where you're working in, which is not so strong or so stable, you can have a really large fluctuation. Here an example of 84% or 43%. We had during this project, we mentioned the R&D project in Bahia. So all these problems together, we worked about those and about some solutions for that as well. Unfortunately, you have to learn a little bit of Portuguese to be able to read it. But Google Translator is very helpful nowadays. So you could download this presentation about barriers and solutions we did. And I think it's completely valid nowadays as well, still. My personal opinion is that performance-based contracting is the best way to go, because then you have a contractor which is totally focused on getting most of the biogas into energy. And if you get most of the biogas into energy, you already have the climate aspect. And if you have somebody who really wants to operate the CHP most of the time, because he gets money from that, that's a perfect situation. So for the client, which might be a public company, that could be a very interesting solution. We tried to implement that solution with Embasa in Bahia, and we have not been successful because the processes for something unknown, how can that be done in a water company? We have not been able to overcome these problems without external help. And I think there, on these cases, GIZ could be a very interesting catalysator to get these projects going. On my opinion, really, performance-based contracting is the only way to guarantee on a long-term basis sustainability. Maybe I'm a little bit negative. I hope I didn't destroy too much expectations, but that was the part I had to talk to you about. Thank you very much, and I hope there will be a lot of discussion about it.
Thank you so much, Christoph.